Hey everybody, Kim Barrett here, the host of the Kim Barrett Show. On today's episode, we catch up with the main man, Mr. Wang. So Will is a gun when it comes to all things growth hacking, business growth, marketing and advertising, and we catch up and we chat not only about all the cool stuff that he's doing with a bit of fun offline stuff. We also look at what he's doing online and how he's helping his clients grow through cold outreach. So if you're a business owner, if you're B2B, if you're someone who really wants to grow their business into 2020 and beyond, I highly recommend you listen to this one. Now, Will is the gun and hopefully he's going to make it across to our Certified Ballers Live event. So if you haven't got a ticket yet, head over to www.certifiedballerslive.com.au and see the huge lineup of speakers we have. But without further ado, let's jump into the show. We'll see you guys on there. Welcome, ladies and gentlemen, to another episode of the Kim Barrett Show. Today, I have a very special guest I'm pumped to have here talking to us, which is Mr. Wang. Will, thank you so much for joining us.
Thanks for having me, mate. Great to be here.
I love it. So if anyone hasn't seen already, I was recently on Will's podcast as well. He has a phenomenal podcast, so you all should go and check it out because, if you want to learn more marketing stuff, you've got to be around people that are doing good stuff. And that's how it really, Will and I came to meet was I was attending an event, Will was speaking at an event, and we'd both been running in similar circles. And I think probably seeing each other online for some time. So it was very cool to finally meet in person. Now, Will, I already know because I've got to hear a bit about you, a bit about your story and everything like that. But please tell all our listeners and viewers a little bit more about yourself. And obviously you specialize in B2B marketing, and I like the way that you described it, so I'll let you describe because it's better than how I could say. But tell us a little bit about it and who you work with and how you work with them.
Yeah, sure. So I think the thing that I said, and they kind of impressed myself too, because it was kind of off the cuff. What we kind of do as an agency is we do kind of multi-channel marketing for our clients with a B2B flavor. So I'll kind of go into a little bit of the story, and I'll make it short, and kind of how we arrived at this point to doing what we do. So essentially, like from I've always had a bit of an entrepreneurial streak, and coming out of high school, like I did the whole corporate thing where you go to uni, and work in corporate IT and all that kind of stuff, and like I just really didn't like doing that. Like I didn't really like the fact that I had all these ideas, and I bring it up to my managers, and I wasn't being utilized. So having an entrepreneurial drive, I thought, hey, I'm going to go and start my own business. The problem was like I was the biggest introvert, IT nerd, all that kind of stuff. Couldn't sell. I hated talking on the phone. Like literally get cold sweats just talking to people on the phone. So like it kind of got through. Like that's how I started. The agency in a very handicapped way, but the whole way leading up to that point, I had been dabbling with marketing stuff. Like my writing was quite good, even though my sales wasn't. So I'd become a copywriter just by accident. Like I was hanging around on gaming forums, and there happened to be a guy on one of the gaming forums was like, "Hey, I just want a website." So I kind of took it on. Similar to your story, kind of just Googled how do you build websites, and then kind of transition into marketing. My family business, we build kitchen bench tops, like stone kitchen bench tops for people. And so with that business, I really got to experiment with writing and approaching people, and just understanding like how you get into bigger companies and get big deal sizes. Because at that point, our business was just starting out. My father-in-law had to pay the bills with business. And, as you start a business, there's always slumps and periods where you have to kind of crawl through glass. And I really want to help him. Like his English isn't the best. So from my perspective, it's like, how can I help you get in front of the right leads and structure and position in a way where we can overcome all of these hurdles and still get the good deals? So that was kind of my introduction into the whole B2B stuff. And I think I kind of cut my teeth on the worst market to do B2B stuff into, which is tradies or tradespeople, because sometimes they just don't give you time of day. But long story short, going through all that process and seeing the results that we've got for them, I kind of transitioned into doing our own thing and started offering our services one by one. And we've kind of grown since that point about 3.5 years ago into a proper agency at this point in time. So.
Nice. I love it. And I think it's easy. One of the things that I saw when I first saw you present and you kind of talk about a few of the different things that you do is I think it will be easy for someone who didn't know your approach to go, So you're one of those guys that like kind of spams people, right? Like you do some of that spam, like because in the approach that you have or the one of the approaches that you have is kind of that cold outreach. And I think that most people have been conditioned and they keep seeing I'll say like the bad way to go about it. Same as when someone tells you Facebook ads doesn't work. It's like, no, someone just was really bad at explaining it to you and you did it the wrong way. So tell us a little bit more about some of the different methodologies and processes you use, because I think it's a lot of stuff that people would like to use, but they're scared of going like, am I going to be one of those people that then is just like is super spammy and it's not going to get me anywhere?
Yeah, absolutely. That's a good point. And look, I mean, going into it, for me as an introvert, that was the hardest bit of, approaching businesses, because it's kind of like, why would they want to talk to me first and foremost? And then the second bit is like, am I annoying them, or am I bothering them with something? So our entire approach is kind of built around, let's not annoy people. Let's, get them to say, hey, is this relevant? Is this helpful? And if it's not, we're just going to leave them alone, and that's completely fine. So our entire approach, and, some of the clients that we've worked for, I mean, one of our clients, we've got him 90% open rate and 60% reply rate into the biggest travel companies in Australia. Like these are, ASX listed. ASX is kind of the Australian stock exchange. These are all listed companies, and we've gotten meetings with C-suite executives. The way that we've done that isn't to go in and go like, hey, here's what we do. I'm going to spam you and, shove my message down your throat. It's more like, hey, we've got this thing that we think is going to really give value to you. We've got another client in your industry we've done it for. Are you even interested? Like, is this even a relevant conversation? Because if it's not, that's completely fine. Like, I'm just going to back right out. Like, you won't even hear the door hit me on the way out. But if it is relevant, like, let's have a conversation, see if we can actually help you. And, if part of that is we can't help you, that's completely fine. Part of it is our service actually is a good fit and there's value in both, for both of us, then let's do some business. So that's the kind of mentality of how we do this approach. And the stuff that we write is a little bit unique in that it's not spammy at all, and it just really engages people who want to be engaged.
Yeah, I love that, and I'd love to actually like I want to read you one like a message I got, and I read this and I was like, surely Will would probably like throw up in his mouth a little bit when he hears this. So I just like, this is the message. So obviously like this can apply on email, this can apply on direct mail, it can apply in Messenger as well. But I got this and I was like, this is super weird. So I was like, this chick says, hi, thank you so much for following and liking my stories and content in here. I looked at your page and love what you're all about. We have a lot in common. I would love to get to know you better and connect via video chat. Let me know if you're open to it and what would be the best day and time for you. Let's set up about 30 minutes. I live in the Pacific time zone. When I got that, I was like what? like I have like, tell me your feedback on that before I like yell and scream about it. Tell me, like, hearing that as someone who does direct outreach for people, what does that say to you?
It's there's so many different elements of it, and like the first thing for me is they're trying to make it sound like they've done some research and personalized, which they obviously haven't. Right? It's a very generic message that obviously goes out to everyone, and it's trying to compliment you, but it's like you haven't even checked out what we do. You don't know. There's no evidence that you actually know what we do, so it comes across as very disingenuous. Which already like so the way that we look at it, the only purpose of a cold email or cold message or outreach in general is to start a relationship. And you don't want to start your relationship based on a lie, based on, trying to trick people. That's never the best way to go. So that's obviously what they're trying to do. They don't give you any benefit. Like, why would you want to talk to this person? You're a business owner, you're busy. Like, come on. Like, if I got half an hour, I want to go take a nap. I don't want to like sit here and talk to some random person, right? Exactly. And then like, yeah, so it's just like, and half an hour is a lot of time to be asking for, like, especially if you don't know the person. It's obviously a very badly discussed sales pitch. So like, there's so many things wrong about that. And unfortunately, that's what 99% of the market is doing. I mean, that's actually not even some of the worst ones I've got. Like, I'm getting a lot of stuff through our website contact form. And it's like, don't put your crap messages into my contact form, because now I've got to clean you off my email list. It's just stuff like that people don't think about. Yeah, it's really frustrating to see.
And there's one thing that you said there which I really love, and I did an interview with Brian Kurtz not long ago, and he said the same, like a very similar thing. He's like, not everything is a revenue event, but everything is a relationship event. And I think if you do go into it and you're like, oh, I'm going to go and have a conversation with someone because I want to pitch them this thing, and it's like, well, no, you can't expect to go from zero to sale in a message and then a call. Like that really is like, I mean, look, if you're a good salesperson and they opted in for something, probably you could, right? That you can do a one call close or something. But if you're trying to go from someone who has no idea who you are, you message them to coming across and you're providing them with no value, it's just impossible. And that's why I think sometimes it's people, because they hear like a bit of direct outreach and they hear direct mail and things like that. They're like, oh, does that mean I'm going to be like one of those people, like one of those spamming? And I think the approach that you have is so much different. You bring a lot of sense of what I could see and what was like humor, and actually like having a real life personal conversation and leading with what value you could bring to someone as well, which I think is super important. So yeah, I just I love it. But I wanted to give the listeners and viewers like a real life example, because I think sometimes they go, oh, just like what does it actually mean? Because it's like we as marketers, we know what that means, and I know that you do a good job of it because I've seen you around long enough and I've seen you present and whatnot as well. But sometimes I think people can kind of like they go like, how is it different? How can you approach that different? So if someone was thinking about like something in B2B and they're like, cool, I want to cut through, I want to be able to reach some of those bigger companies and bigger deals, what's the couple of recommendations that you would give them and go, cool, here's what number one, you need to think about, and here's number two, what platforms you need to think about as well?
Yeah, perfect. So, so that's a great question there, by the way. The thing I think about most, and I think this goes across everything that you do, right, is a lot of people kind of hide behind the screen and they just think, it's a numbers game. But you've got to understand that behind all the numbers are actual people. So when people are like, oh, B2B and B2C, it's actually not. It's H to H, human to human marketing, and I'm a big believer in that. So one of the things that we do to stand out is just highlight that we are human, that we're not just going in there to try and pitch people. Like, obviously we do want to get something out of it, because there's no value, let's not waste both our time. But at the same time, there's got to be, if there is a fit in there, there's got to be a value exchange on both sides. So I think that's one of the big things to understand, that, it's not about you, it's about what you can help people with. And it's about connecting on a human level, because, we were talking about this a little bit earlier on, but running an agency is hard. So why would you, just as an example with our businesses, so why would you work with clients who aren't the right fit for you and make life even harder? So number one for me, and this kind of goes back to Perry Marshall's book, the 2080 or 80/20 of sales and marketing. It's kind of like, what we're trying to do isn't to bring on a whole bunch of leads. It's more like to filter out prospects who aren't even the right fit for us to begin with. So we can spend as much time and attention giving value to the right leads as possible. So I'll say that's the main thing. Once you get understanding of that, the process that we normally take is to look at, and this is kind of very similar to our conversation. It's looking at what industry or what niche you actually serve. It's understanding how you actually help them and what pains they've got, or frustrations in their life or what challenges in business. What is it that you actually help with? And then crafting an offer that helps them with that. That's price based on value. So if you charge $1,000, well, you better be solving $10,000 problems for them, and having an offer that kind of talks to that. So if you've got the right industry or niche, if you've got the right product, the right pain you're solving, and the right offer, everything else becomes actually really, really easy.
I didn't even pay him anything, guys, and he's promoting the NOC method, right? You guys all know how important that is. I think anyone in marketing and business, like we've obviously coined it over here, like in our terminology, but I think everyone's like, you can't really approach business any differently if you don't tick those boxes. It's like, what do you like? How are you actually marketing or positioning yourself? So I'd love to know, so if you go through and do that process, and you told me a little bit about this before, but like, how would you then, someone comes to you like, I've got all these things lined up, and let's say they want to work with, I'll give you an example, because one of the guys in our office, he specializes in real estate and property. He goes, cool, Will, I've got everything lined up. I know my niche, I know how I can help them, all this sort of stuff, and I want to work with people in property, in real estate. How can I get in front of more of them? What sort of platforms or what approach, just generically, because I know like this is probably also what people pay you for. So like, just give us an example of like, you would go, cool, we would do this, this, and this. What's some high level stuff that you would do there?
Dude, I'm more than happy to share, because there's happy to share because like some of this stuff, it takes a little while to figure out. But what I would say, like, have some persistence on it. So the thing that we look at doing is, where are his audience hanging out? So is it on, is it on forums somewhere? Like, can we get in front of the right people at forums? Is it that they're on LinkedIn? So, if it's in real estate, a lot of commercial real estate people are jumping over to LinkedIn. There might be a really good audience there, but it's about finding where the audience is. And, for us, what we do is we look at how much data can we capture on the audience that you're trying to go after, because there's software and there's tools out there that can help you find the right email address. So one of the things that I really advise is don't send emails to generic email addresses like info at contact that, because that's going to get filtered. That's going to bounce, and it's just not going to be good, for both sides. But if you can find the right person, with the background that you know exactly how you help them and what the value is, you can really easily these days find the contact email of the right person to speak to. So then after you get that, we essentially have an Excel spreadsheet, and we store it somewhere very securely, because obviously, we want to be safe with data. But that's a list of prospects. We don't even call them leads, because we don't even know they've got an interest in what we do. So it's a list of prospects. And then we craft email sequences. So it's not just one cold email that we send. It's a sequence with a few different angles on there. We do a lot of split testing in emails as well, to look at how many people open it, how many people reply, and are the replies positive or negative, and then do we get a sale from the email sequence. So we do a whole bunch of split testing, but we use programs like quickmail.io, which kind of helps us automate the process of sending emails and sending follow-ups. So you don't have to sit there like 10 hours a day just banging out individual emails. It does it all for you really easily.
Nice. And now, one that I'm very interested in, you mentioned before that you've done a little bit with direct mail. What's some cool stuff? Because I think that with direct mail, people are like, oh, I'm just going to get like a letter in an envelope. And I know in direct mail, and there's a couple that I've heard of that have just been like, when I've heard them, I was like, that is a cracking direct, like to send that out is so cool. Is there anything that you go, here's some cool stuff that we did that was just either number one, hilarious, or number two was just a really creative way of getting in there?
Yeah, absolutely. And I think direct mail for me, like we're doubling down on direct mail, because we're seeing that in combination with email outreach, it's really getting a lot of good cut through. So, as more and more people move online only, we're actually going back into offline work, because there's such a big gap, and we're finding the cut through is really good. In terms of the campaigns that we've run or direct mail pieces we've sent that have worked really well, I had a client that does an event recently, and what we did was, so they're not looking for a lot of people at these events, but the people they're looking for, they want to be qualified, because they're selling, a service at these events, which are kind of high value. So what we did for them is we crafted really nice looking envelopes. So golden envelopes that was handwritten. So I literally brought someone into the office to handwrite the names and addresses of every single one of these. We had a really nice insert with a really special message. So as soon as they open the envelope, they get the insert. It's very tactile insert, and it stands out really nicely. So it gets them curious, like, okay, what's this thing? Like they pick up the insert and go, what's this message about? And then they open the letter, which is printed on really high stock quality paper, and it's got the message crafted in a certain way where it's like, wow, this is actually makes me really curious. So that was one that worked really well in a very in a market that branding was very important, because it's high, it's investors and stuff like that. One that we've done for ourselves was actually a bit of a funny campaign that worked really well. It's a campaign of direct mail that followed after a sequence of emails, and it was a really funny picture of a really sad puppy, and it's like, hey, we see you've been opening a lot of our emails, but we haven't heard back from you. Sad face. I thought I'd send this. We're just making a joke out of things. But it really does come back to the brand that you're trying to portray to market. So if we took the puppy image and applied it to my client, that would have been a total disconnect. It would have flopped. But for us, because we are really playful and we do experiment with what we do, that kind of worked really well with the tonality of the emails that we sent. So you're just going to make sure that what you do actually fits into the overall theme of your marketing and also your wider brand.
I love it. Have you ever done anything that kind of ties in with almost like a lumpy mail strategy as well, where there's something else you put in there? Like I heard one story. I was at the Grant Cardone event, and Jared Glant shared that they had one where they were trying to get into a company, so they sent them a chocolate boot, and on it said, "I'm just trying to get my foot in the door. Please give me a call back." And I was like, I thought that was hilarious. I was like, that's great. I love that. Have you done anything kind of like that in the with like and for anyone listening, lumpy mail is kind of like where you get if you're watching the podcast, which you should watch as well, like you get an envelope and it's got stuff in there, and you're like, well, only I'm going to open it because my team's not going to open it for me because there's something cool inside that I probably ordered. But you're kind of bypassing and jumping over that gatekeeper. Have you done anything down those lines?
Yeah, we have. Lumpy mail is it. if you don't know what you're doing, it can be really risky because, I've seen people do it where they just put some random piece of crap that they bought off Alibaba in bulk or something, and they chuck it into lumpy mail, and it just devalues it. People get it, and they're like, "What's this stuff that you're sending me?" Like, no, let's just go away. We have done very tailored promotions. So, for example, we were going after a certain demographic of companies that had run awards, and in the lumpy mail we actually did miniature figurines of an award trophy. So that worked really well because
Nice.
it kind of tied in to what
Mm,
the message was,
yeah,
but it's got to be very relevant. Like that chocolate boot example is really good, right? Because it's kind of relevant to the message,
yeah,
but at the same time it depends on the market that you're setting it to. Like if you do it in a really bad way, it comes across as tacky. So you want to be very careful with what you're sending in the lumpy mail.
yeah. And so, what made you? And like, I'm a big believer in that because I love getting stuff in the mail now because, as you said, everyone's online. There's like no one's going offline. We do a lot. Like we mail stuff out. We have a free USB that we do, and we put in there like inserts, and we have offers in there, and we like make it really fun and interesting for people. But what made you go towards that avenue of tying in direct mail when a lot of people would be like, oh no, just put them in a retargeting audience and just hit them on Facebook, YouTube, and LinkedIn versus going, oh no, actually we're going to tie in something cool here and we're going to do a piece of that. Like, what made you do that?
Yeah, I think for me, it was kind of like, yes, online's great because you can track everything, but even offline for me, it's kind of like looking at avenues, right? Because I like to zig when everyone else zags, and everyone is coming into online. The prices, to acquire a customer online are generally going up. Obviously, you're working on some pretty cool campaigns where it's not as affected as the rest of the market. It's getting more and more expensive to do this online stuff as demand kind of catches up with supply. So for me, I'm always thinking, well, what's the most effective way, or how can I get my clients the best results for what they've invested with us? And for me, it's kind of like, well, if everyone's going to this direction, why don't we test this stuff? So it's literally just a bunch of testing. Like we're testing a whole bunch of different avenues and channels constantly, and it just so happened that we tested a campaign with direct mail, and it just smashed it. Like it was a market, we're targeting a small town in the US, and the emails just weren't getting the traction that we liked. So all the bigger towns that we sent emails to, the cold emails performed really well. This small town in the US, we just couldn't crack it. So I thought, look, rather than give up, let's just test a few things, right? Let's just run ads to the town specifically and really geo target. Let's just do direct mail into the town. Let's do some radio ads. And by and far, the best performing campaign of the three was actually direct mail. So then it's like, well, if it works for this, why don't we take it and think about how it's going to work for all the other campaigns and all the other territories we're covering, and see if that works just as well. And it did. It just absolutely killed it.
Yeah, I love that, man. That's so good. And I think that's the big thing that for anyone, again, listening, watching, is that you always need to be testing, right? Just because one thing works now, and it's like, I'm sure that there's probably been times where you might have tested a direct mail piece and then it didn't work and you went back to something else and it works. Like, you never want to rely only on one thing. It's like, the worst number in the world is one of anything. So I think that that's really powerful, and it's good to hear that like that you also back that up, because a lot of people I think can sometimes go, oh, well, Kim just talks about Facebook ads and we should just do this, or Will told me to do email and direct and I should just do that. And it's like, no, you need to have that, like you said, that multi-channel approach with my little B2B twist on the top for you. You need to make sure that you are testing those things all the time, because otherwise it's very, very easy to sit on your laurels, and then if business or a market shifts, you can't adapt because you've only got one thing. And
Yeah,
I think
it's a
that's why
really
it's
good
so
point.
important.
Yeah, and I'll bring up something that I saw today, which really highlighted this point for me in a really big way. So, in some of the groups that I'm in, there's another guy who, was claiming to do a whole bunch of stuff with cold emails. The cold emails he was sending, like, to be not calling, I'm not going to name drop or anything, but he was just doing the wrong things, right? Just some of the stuff that you were talking about, very generic, trying to hit mass market, and just it was just a numbers game for him rather than quality. He was focused on quantity. So what happened early this year in July was Google actually changed some of their email rules. They got really strict on cold emails. So you had to do a lot of personalization with every single email, otherwise it just wouldn't get into inboxes. And at that time, I kind of noticed that he was struggling with some of the clients he was working with. He was asking for advice on, how to get emails to inboxes again. And at that time, we were like, all right, we're going to test different things. We're going to test different technology solutions. We've got to pivot because I know, I can see the writing on the wall. So let's just pivot. So we spent a month trying to figure out email stuff and got back on track with another technology platform. Whereas he kind of started hitting his head up against the wall. And just today I saw like his company's gone bankrupt. He's personally liable for about $50,000 in debt because he took a loan to try and keep his company running and all this bad stuff. And it's like, the point is, don't ever rely on one thing for your business. Like, you need to have a backup for the backup. I truly believe that.
And you've got to stay on top of things. Like, that's why I think podcasts are so important. And I think listening, attending events, all that sort of stuff is like, if you don't know what's going on, you can never change. And this is a very fast changing industry, being that we do stuff online. So, you have to make sure you stay up to date. And now, for anyone listening as well, if you haven't seen already, make sure you please check out Will's podcast as well, Marketing in the Trenches. He's had me as a guest, which I've been very, very happy to, and he does some epic solo episodes and also has many amazing guests on there as well. So where's the best place for people to check you out on your podcast? Or if they just go, look, I'm in that B2B space and what Will said sounds really cool, like, what's the best way for them to connect with you?
Yeah, so the best way is definitely check out the podcast. It's called Marketing from the Trenches. Just search it on iTunes. Yeah. It's all good. If they want to connect with me, my website is Growth Labz with a Z. So growth and then labz.com. Or shoot me an email to will@growthlabz.com, and I'll answer every email. If they want advice, more than happy to give them as much advice as I can in terms of what they're doing. And look, for me anyway, it's all about helping. Like for me, a rising tide kind of floats all boats. So if all the marketers and all the business owners are doing a better job in marketing and talking about themselves in the right way, I think it makes it more effective for everyone. So if there's any way I can help you, please do reach out.
Love it. And normally I would ask a question, but you asked me the question I would normally like to ask people on your podcast. So I'm gonna mix it up and throw out a different question, just for just to be personally selfish because I've got you here. What would be one thing? So we've got an event coming up, certifiedballerslive.com.au.
Yeah.
If you were me and you were running the event and you only had so you took Facebook ads off the table like that I do, what would be one thing that from your wheelhouse that you would do to fill an event of 150 people?
Ooh. So I'll use an actual example because we're filling an event in Melbourne, in the next few weeks with the same numbers. So we need to get 150 people to seats. So we're using kind of, very meta, very similar to what we're talking about. If you're not, we're supplementing Facebook ads with a bunch of LinkedIn ads because we know who we're targeting in that space. We've got the direct mail invites going out. We've got cold emails going out, inviting the right people along. We're leveraging a lot of the exhibitors and a lot of the speakers in their network. So we're asking them to the way that we've done it is it's a really good mix of exhibitors and speakers. None of them compete directly, and all of them are in a very supplementary position. So we've just asked all of them to bring their leads and their prospects, not necessarily clients, but people who they want to meet and try and get over the line into this event, so we can generate buzz for them. So that's going to be a huge thing for us. So if you can leverage that, that'd be great. Otherwise, we're using cold emails, direct mail. We're using phone calls to back those up as well. So if anyone's opened an email a certain number of times, it shows us they've got some interest. If they haven't registered by a certain date, we'll actually get people on the phone to say, hey, I know that you've seen the emails. Did you want to come along? Here's a ticket.
Beautiful. I love that. Thank you so much, Mr. Will, sir. So you guys heard it. Marketing from the Trenches podcast. Check it out. Go and check out growthlabz.com and connect with Will as well. As you can see, he has epic amounts of knowledge. Thank you so much for joining me, Mr. Will, sir. And everyone else, we'll see you next time. Adios.